Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go. Let's talk about the job hunt real quick. You might be somebody who is in the thick of it right now, or maybe you're someone who's happy where you're at, but you know in the future you're destined for more than the role that you currently have. The first piece of that job hunting journey, where you go from just looking to signing the deal, is your resume. Your resume is the foundation that you're laying. Because let's face it, if your resume sucks, you're probably not going to make it into the interview. And you can't get the job if you don't get the interview. So you want to make sure that your resume is in top condition and the best possible representation of you on paper. And let me tell you, I can't count the number of hours my younger self spent staring at a blank document wondering, what on earth am I going to say on my resume to make me stand out? And chances are you guys have been there too. Resumes are hard. But that's something that Of the West can help with. Our team offers elite career services, and one of those services is resume development or resume refining. With resume development, we create your resume from scratch. We take all of your past experiences and skills and combine those unique details specific to the job that you're applying for to showcase that you are the best candidate. With resume refining, you provide the resume and we tweak it as needed to make sure that it's the best representation of you and your abilities. Either way, you're set up for success from the beginning. That resume is yours to keep forever, although you're probably not going to need it because I bet you get that interview. To learn more about our elite career services, you can visit ofthewest.co/consulting. Hello. I am excited to share today's episode with you guys. I'm excited about all of our episodes, I know, but this one is really, really special. Today we are sitting down with Tia Bledsoe, who I had never met prior to this podcast, but I have had a number of friends and acquaintances over the years tell me just how cool this woman is and how smart she is and kind. And you guys know, smart people, kind people, they are my jam. And not only is she incredibly cool, she is the brand heritage director for Pendleton Whisky, one of my favorite brands, not just because it tastes great, but because they really do care about agriculture and the Western way of life. They tell such an eloquent story of our industry, and I love everything that they stand for. So this is a really special episode. We get to learn a little bit more about Tia, the fact that she has been with the company for over 20 years since its inception. She tells you guys a story about how she was part of the crew because initially she worked for the marketing company that was assigned to Pendleton Whisky. So she has been part of the brand since it was picking the label and the glass and like tasting the first samples of whiskey till where she is today. It is a really, really cool story. You guys are going to love it. Without further ado, let's hear it for Tia Bledsoe. Tia, thank you for being here today. I am excited to get to know you better and to really get to share the story of Pendleton Whisky. So to kick things off, I want to know more about you. Where did you grow up? What were you like as a kid? Did you ever see yourself working in the beverage industry? Like, how did you get where you are?
Well, I grew up on the Oregon coast in the small community of Astoria, and I was outgoing, energetic, a little bit of a ham. Never turned down a good microphone when I find it. But I can't say that I ever saw myself working specifically in the beverage industry. I always wanted to work in hotel management and run my own hotel someday. But with so much of the Bev Alc business being about engaging with consumers, hospitality, entertainment, I suppose it really was on my radar and kind of a natural fit for me to work in this industry.
So then how did you get your start with Pendleton? Because you've been there since the brand's inception.
I have, and I'm very, very blessed and fortunate that I've worked in a variety of facets. So I actually started out with a marketing agency that helped develop the brand. So when the previous owner walked in and said he had a pipeline of liquid, and so the marketing agency helped create the brand from picking out the glass to the design to tasting the liquid. And then from there, transitioned to actually working for the owner of Pendleton Whisky in 2006 and then continued working with them until the brand was sold in 2018. And so literally have just from before it was actually a brand, it was really like, I like to say a twinkle in someone's eye, and have just, like I said, been fortunate to see it grow from so many different facets. But yeah, really it's embodies everything I'm all about.
That is so crazy that you were literally part of picking the packaging and you have like tasted it from the very beginning to see what Pendleton Whiskey is today. That has got to be a really cool feeling.
It is. It's humbling because, like I said, I didn't have any experience in the spirits industry before Pendleton Whiskey. And so even in Western lifestyle. So really, I feel like I have grown up with this brand and have embraced every part of it. And which isn't hard to do. I mean, I think the lifestyle as a whole is so, I mean, you don't meet a stranger. No, everyone treats you like family. And so I think having grown up with that and knowing that really the heritage, the traditions of what it all started with was the Pendleton Roundup. And so being able to have them as the backbone and heritage of who we are has really instilled a lot of who I am today.
Okay, so I have a question about that specifically because there is so much history in Pendleton Whiskey and the Pendleton Roundup and just Pendleton, Oregon as a whole. But that doesn't necessarily mean that when everything starts from the beginning, right? We all start somewhere. And when you're starting something new, not necessarily everybody is always on board. Did people ever have their doubts about, hey, we want to start this whiskey company and we want to, kind of theme it around Pendleton and the Roundup? Or did everybody buy into the vision on day one? Or were there people that really had to be talked into getting on board?
Well, because we were born out of this prestigious rodeo, the Pendleton Roundup, and I can honestly say that the people behind the Roundup, the directors, the volunteers, they embraced us from day one. That's not to say there weren't naysayers, but truly the family, the community, the people behind the Roundup, they are the ones, I mean, literally they traveled to rodeos. And as you know, the rodeo community, when you have the rodeo committees, they travel from rodeo to rodeo, and these directors took our brand and were an extension of our salespeople and helped build our footprint out of Pendleton, Oregon to the Northwest, to the mountain. I mean, it just grew exponentially over the years. And so, we strive to be a brand that reflected and embodied the work and commitment that the directors and the numerous volunteers put into the event every year. So yes, there was definitely a strong belief in the brand from the beginning. And, what we've really worked is to continue to stay true to that heritage, the traditions of our namesake rodeo for the past 20 years.
Oh, well, there are two things that I really admire about Pendleton Whiskey, and I'm going to touch on both of those, and then I'm going to ask some questions kind of around those topics, because I think that these concepts, they really are things that other people can apply to their businesses and are just really important reminders in general. And the first is Pendleton Whiskey is a brand that's really committed to people and to telling incredible stories. If you are listening to this and you guys have never been to Pendleton during Roundup, you have to make the trip. I have been making the trip since I was a child. Justin went to college there. Even though we're not locals, if you will, there is not a year where we miss going to Pendleton, just because the people there are the most incredible people and the rodeo is like anything else. And so back to Pendleton Whiskey, you guys really show the same interest in being a brand that's known for storytelling. Where does that come from? How do you make sure that you weave that throughout your brand? And personally, what are some of your favorite stories to tell?
Goodness. First, thank you for your kind words. I agree. The Pendleton Roundup is unlike any other. The fact that they've won Large Outdoor Rodeo of the Year 9 times is so exciting and so well-deserved. And, having been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But, our story comes from the Pendleton Roundup. We've grown up as a brand with them by our side. And really, truly, what started out as one rodeo as a whole has allowed us to support the sport of rodeo. So as the official whiskey of Pro Rodeo, we are blessed to be a part of so many amazing rodeos across the country. And these events raise money for charitable organizations in their communities. They make a difference each and every day, which is so inspiring. And the people that volunteer at these events, giving so much of their time to make sure that the event is successful. And so, the brand is based in the incredible and bold personalities of the West. and an embodiment of their hard work and adventurous spirit. So great brands aren't just great product. They should elicit a feeling. And that's truly what we aim for with Pendleton Whisky. And stories, yes. I mean, 20 years in, it was hard to speak to one, but truly I just pulled from the most recent experience, and it wasn't even a personal. It was an email. A gentleman in Oklahoma sent an email in and said he worked for a company who has several military veterans employed. And he wrote to thank the brand and basically for the support of our military with the Military Appreciation Edition and the donation we make to the Bob Woodruff Foundation. He purchased a bottle for every veteran in their company. And he wasn't looking for anything from me. He just wanted to say thank you and keep up the good work. And so it's such an honor and privilege to work on a brand that truly cares about the community and the people. And I think that's where the brand has built beyond just our core original Pendleton whiskey. We've got several SKUs in our portfolio, but along with the military appreciation, we do the Champions Edition, which I'm sure you've seen over the past few years in Pendleton, but is specifically only sold in Oregon. And it was created to honor and celebrate the competitors and volunteers of the Pendleton Roundup. The generations of family that volunteer for the Pendleton Roundup, and truly for a lot of rodeos across the country, they're the heart, the soul, and truly the story that makes it possible for Pendleton Whisky to give back. So it's what I'm most proud of.
Oh, well, that kind of ties into the other thing that I really admire about the brand is you guys literally ride for the brand, unlike any other company, beverage company aside, like that I have ever seen. So you mentioned the Bob Woodruff Foundation earlier. You guys partner with Pendleton Woolen Mills, PBR, PRCA, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, like Snake River Farms. We can't forget them. But those are the companies and organizations that are behind rodeo athletes and ranching conservation and ranchers themselves and members of the military. Like, I feel like when I buy a bottle of Pendleton, my money is going to a company that actually cares about our industry and our way of life. And that's not something that I can say for every other brand that is out there. And maybe this isn't so much of a question, but more of like an open-ended opportunity for you to share. Why is that so important to your brand?
Well, again, thank you. I think that's exactly what we're striving, is for people to feel that way and to actually walk the talk. There are many people who can be credited for getting the brand to where it is today. We've surrounded ourselves with organizations and brand partners that have similar values and beliefs. Grit, camaraderie are something the brand believes in and is integral to part of the West. So we're fortunate to get to work with other national sponsors that have truly helped pave the way to where we are today. And it's most important to remember we would not be where we are today without the support of Pendleton Whisky fans. The fact that they believe in us means the world and allows us to continue doing what we do and give back as much as we can.
Oh, I love that. Okay, a side question for you. Pendleton Whisky is spelled without an E. And oftentimes when I'll share about Pendleton on social media, I'll always have people say, "Hey, you misspelled that." No, I didn't. Can you tell people why Pendleton Whisky is spelled without an E? Because I think it's kind of an interesting story that our listeners would be interested in.
I guess it could be interesting. Whiskey with no E refers to Canadian, Scottish, or Japanese grain spirits. We're Pendleton Whisky is distilled in Canada before being cut with glacier-fed spring water from Oregon's Mount Hood. So it's strictly because we're a Canadian whiskey that we have no E. So I've learned, it used to just get under my skin when I would see an E and, someone who put that, and now I'm just like, you know what? It's okay. It's whiskey at the end of the day. But that's truly what all it is Canadian.
Okay. So Canadian whiskey, you spell it without an E. Very simple. It's kind of like it's Secretariat, Ariat. People always call it Ariat, but it's Ariat because it's named after the horse Secretariat. Like there's just those little things that I think are kind of interesting. And I like to be able to share them as we can.
Excellent.
Okay, we've talked a lot about Pendleton Whisky so far, but I feel like I would be wasting our listeners' time and your time if we didn't talk about you, because I've had a number of people tell me that you are an absolute Wonder Woman when it comes to business. What is your why? How did you get where you are? What is some advice that you would give people? I want to hear it.
Jessie, gosh, I'm like sweating and blushing and everything all at the same time. Thank you. Thank you. And everybody's so kind. I wouldn't be where I am or half of what I do without the support of numerous employees, colleagues, family, and friends. The why for me has always been about the people. I believe in what I do because of the people, whether it's working with event staff and volunteers to make sure we do right by the event, whether it's leading the Pendleton Whisky team, whether it's getting to talk to consumers about Pendleton Whisky, both of those familiar and unfamiliar, that's a passion point for me. I take ownership and pride in how we bring the brand to life, and I always have. And knowing how our brand can impact Western athletics and beyond, as you pointed out, with the different organizations and consumer passion points, we have a broader reach through the events we get to support and work with. So that's the why for me.
Oh, okay. On the career side, I find it really fascinating that you initially started with the marketing company that worked basically as a contractor to the owner of Pendleton Whisky. And then you joined on board then, and then you stayed on board after the company was sold to its current owner. What did that transition look like for you?
Well, it feels pretty seamless. It was what I was meant to do. It was never a question. I mean, there were a few little bumps in the road along the way of just learning curves, but I've just been so blessed to work with people that have embraced who I am and what I'm about and pushed me to grow. And because I didn't have spirits experience, I don't come from this Western lifestyle industry, but that was never a barrier. It was an opportunity for me to thrive and learn and grow. And like I said, I can't imagine doing anything different now.
Oh, well, and one thing too, and I think especially because oftentimes in the agriculture or Western way of life, companies, they start off small and then they maybe get acquired by somebody a little bit bigger and then they get acquired by somebody a little bit bigger. For those people who do stay on, or maybe it's not even by somebody bigger, it's just by somebody else. If you're an employee who is staying on, things are going to change, but they're not going to stay the same. Like there's this kind of like awkward phase, for lack of a better word. What advice would you give to somebody who's maybe in that phase right now? They want to stay with the company. They want to move on. Things are going to have to be the same, but they're also going to have to change. Give us some advice there.
I would say take a breath and give it time. I think that's looking back now, I can honestly say I do not do change well. And I think over the course of the last 20 years, there has been a lot of change in all facets of my life. And the fact that I just had to take a breath and know that tomorrow is a new day and that I love what I do. And so I wasn't willing to give it up or walk away or think, oh, this is too hard. And I was ready to dig in and keep working to get to a better place for myself or to feel better about whatever was happening in the moment. So I would just say, take a breath, pause, but then find your place, dig in and find your place.
Well, and I think too, it's important to kind of serve as that, like the bridge, if you will, from not necessarily from one side or the other, but from like past to future. Like this is kind of the history of how things have been done. And this is where we want to go. And just really being that middleman for, being the sounding board for ideas and thoughts. And I think that's really important too.
Well, and to speak to that a little bit, I think even just my title now is Brand Heritage Director, and that's been over the last couple of years. And I've had numerous titles in 20 years. And the fact that I was a little not loving the brand, like the hair, like that just means I've kind of older. I've been around the block a few times. And so, but now I've learned to embrace it and appreciate it and know that there is something that, to your point of bridging the gap from one company, from one person, from different marketing programs that we do, I really do try to be the sounding board and not the one that can say, well, we tried that and that didn't work. It's okay. You know what? We've looked at that, but wow, let's look at it with fresh eyes and a positive spin and figure out, what can we tweak? What can we do different? And so it is, again, I guess, pushing me outside of my comfort zone every day of not getting settled and pushing myself to change along with the brand, knowing that when the owner came to me initially and said, this is what we need to do, this is the right thing. And I was like, whoa, I don't think so. I think we need to keep our arms around it and just keep doing what we're doing because I'm happy. But
because it's easy in that way.
it was. And here we are 6.5 years later and owned by Proximo Spirits, Jose Cuervo, and they have truly embraced the brand. And there have been changes, but even more so of what we're able to do and give back and be present within the Western athletics and Western lifestyle community. They've afforded us that. And the owner making the decision initially to sell has afforded that. So that's where I look back, and those changes were extremely difficult, but good changes for the brand. And so the fact that I still get to be here and be a part of it, that's just icing on the cake.
Oh, okay. Since you have been with Pendleton for 20 years, let's get back in our little time capsule. What would you tell Tia in 2004? What advice would you give to yourself?
Gosh, that's really hard, Jessie. You know what? I would just be cognizant of change, and that change is not a bad thing, because back then I was just living footloose and fancy free and in the moment of what I was doing and not realizing that there were little changes happening, but change is good. And if you embrace it and appreciate it, it will all work out.
I also don't love change, and shocker, none of us do unless it's our idea. Then we're all about it. So that's one reason that we should be a little bit more open to change, is because when it's our own idea, we love it. So we should have a better outlook on it. But I often have to remind myself that the phrase or saying, what got you here won't get you there. Like, you can't keep doing the thing that you've been doing, because that's not going to necessarily get you where you want to be in the future. It got you to where you are now, but you're still going to have to change and evolve and pivot and, do things a little bit differently, likely to get you where it is that you want to go.
Well, and exactly. And I think I love that that's your quote. And I think, for me, when I was preparing for this and thinking about like success, and it's not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. And so if you love what you do, you'll be successful. And I can honestly say all the ups and downs and highs and lows and change, but I love what I do. And like I said, it always comes back to the people that I get to surround myself with, and the fact that, Pendleton Whisky is a brand that is immersed in camaraderie and work ethic and just people. And so the fact that this brand has allowed me to do what I love most and be around people, and now to know that we've built a brand that is successful in the moment. There's still so much more work to be done, and there's still so much more to give back to Western athletics and to the sport of rodeo, and just knowing that we get to be a part of it day in and day out. Like I said, it's a blessing.
Oh, well, that is the perfect way to roll into the rapid fire round. We do have a new question specifically for today's episode. What's your favorite cocktail?
Well, of course, anything with Pendleton Whisky, Jessie. One of the things I love the most about my job is the surprise and delight I get to share with consumers when I talk about the brand. And so really, truly, there's so many that don't realize that Pendleton Whisky is so smooth. And we truly, consistent for 20 years, no matter what product you have, Midnight, 1910, Director's Reserve, the original, it finishes smooth. So if you want a good Bloody Mary, if you want a good margarita, a lemon drop, a mule, just add Pendleton. It adds a little bit more flavor than vodka, tequila, but truly that's kind of a secret that not everybody's aware of. And it's a really, like I said, a surprise and delight when I'm at a bar talking to a consumer and I've ordered a rodeo Rita, which is a margarita with Pendleton. And they're like, wait, what? And then I order them one, and it's cheers.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was going to tell you what mine was, and it's a Rodeo Mary. You guys, if you're listening and you're 21 and you haven't yet tried Pendleton Whisky in your Bloody Mary instead of vodka, it is absolutely amazing. It is my favorite Pendleton drink. I cannot get over Bloody Mary with Pendleton Whisky.
Yes. Love it. Love
okay.
it.
What is your best piece of business or personal advice that you have ever been given?
It's pretty simple. Do not judge a book by its cover. It's so easy to make assumptions about people and But I remind myself to remember we do not know what has or is going on in someone else's life. So just always try to be kind and respectful.
Okay, similar but different question here. If you could give people any words of wisdom and you knew that they would take them to heart, what would it be?
It's kind of what I talked about before, just giving yourself grace, taking that breath, be kind to yourself. Things can feel hard to keep up in many ways, but just know that tomorrow's a new day.
If you could go to dinner with anybody dead or alive, who would you pick?
Oh gosh, I thought about this and wanted to be clever and smart at the end of the day, but truly I choose dinner with my family. Life is short and they see less of me as I travel around the country promoting the brand, so I choose them.
We have had a few people choose their family, and I love that because it doesn't necessarily have to be some celebrity or
But that's your first thought, right?
Yeah.
That's your first thought is that, oh gosh, it's gotta be really great. And then like I said, the more I thought about it, I was like, oh no, right now, because I've been on the road for months. So,
Well, and I can imagine summer is probably your busier season just with various events and whatnot.
you would think, but it's year round. And if I'm home 2 solid weeks, I need to get out. But I love that. I love that part of my job. So no complaining.
Okay, what is a quote that you lead your life by?
Well, it's what I was talking about earlier, that really success is not the key to happiness. And for me, I think that's what I really weigh everything on is happiness is the key to success. And so if you love what you're doing, consider yourself successful. And that's Albert Schweitzer. And truly it came across my feed a while back. And I realized that I can honestly say that I have been happy and content and passionate about what I do for 20 years.
Okay, final question for today, Tia. Let's talk about your favorite things. Do you have a favorite book, podcast, program, product, whatever it may be, something that's changed your life that you think more people should know about?
Well, everyone is learning so much about me today, more so than I really thought they would. But favorites has always been a tough question for me. And I have nothing that runs that deep to say has changed my life in some way. I'm a pretty even Steven gal. I try to find the upside and joy in whatever I'm doing. So I have a love for suspense and murder mystery. So any kind of shows, podcasts, and books around that. I love Mexican food. Like I could eat it every day. But when it's all said and done, and to end corny, truly Pendleton Whisky changed my life, giving me the opportunity to grow, learn, and thrive every day, and really just reminding me to live life to its fullest. So that's when you say something has changed your life, that to me there's no exception to that.
Okay, I love a good murder mystery suspense book. Back when I was in high school, I think I read every book of Mary Higgins Clark. Have you ever read those?
Oh, yes.
I love Mary Higgins Clark. I was obsessed with those. So I am so glad that we got to know more about you. While Pendleton Whisky is absolutely amazing, you are part of what makes it amazing. And like I said earlier, we have never met before, but I have had so many people in conversation tell me how incredible that you are. So I wanted to be able to share you with our listeners and just to really get to know more of the brand. Because obviously it's something that people can go, they go to their local bar and they can order it off the shelf and they can buy it in their liquor store and they see, influencers and people drinking it online. But there are people behind these incredible brands, and you are one of those incredible people. And good brands don't just happen. It takes an absolute village. And I am thankful that we got to chat today, but I'm even more thankful that we got to learn a little bit more about you. And I will tell you that you have an open invitation to come back anytime you would like to so that we can learn more about you, because I feel like we maybe just scratched the surface.
Wow. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. And to your point, we have a grand village of people that have been a part of the brand and really have lifted me and held me up during this time. And so I'm only as good as the people I surround myself with. And so I'm very, very fortunate to work with the brand and an industry and to have the opportunity to visit with you. And I'm looking forward to September and Roundup and sitting at a bar and having a cocktail with you with no microphones.
Yes. You guys, I know I mentioned this earlier, but if you have not been to Pendleton, Oregon for Roundup, you absolutely have to, whether you can make it this year or in future years. Add it to your list. It is the greatest show on earth, on the grass, I should say. You would not regret it, though. It really is just a really cool depiction of Western heritage and rodeo all brought together into one. But Tia, thank you so much for today. You guys, as always, you know where to find us. We will be right back here next week.
If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.